Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Lotzar, happy to be your host today, along with Vern Schellinger, and hopefully Alki Thompson and Eve Darawang will be able to join us. But if not, it'll just be me and Vern answering your job search questions. So for those of you who've been here before, this has been open Q&A, so we are happy to address whatever questions are on your heart and mind oh, here is Alki. Good. Any questions on your heart and mind around your job search, whatever topic, from resumes, interviewing, networking, all the things with all the people. So, who would like to kick us off with a question or a testimony? If you have a good thing to share, we love to hear that too. It's faith building for people. So, question or testimony. Unless your job searches are going perfectly, which is great.
I had one observation
Okay.
that I have noticed, and I'm curious if others have noticed it too. But I've been seeing more job postings indicating that they do not want you to use AI in the development of the cover letter or resume. And so I feel like there's kind of a little bit of a backlash. I've seen some of it before, but I
Yeah.
was kind of curious if others are seeing that and how people are addressing it.
I have heard that here and there, I don't know how much of a trend, but I have definitely heard of it. Anyone else seeing that?
In my last interview process, they made a point of making very clear that humans would be involved in the entire process. And then when I went into one of the stages that involved kind of a one-way piece, which they apologized for about 16 times. I thought that was funny. But they did a one-way thing and they said, do not use AI for this part of the process. We want to see you, not see you reading. So they not only said don't use AI, they said why not to use AI.
Helen,
So,
can you elaborate a little bit more when you said it's the one-way piece? What did that look like? What did you mean by one way?
so I was sent kind of a link where there were four questions that I needed to answer, and I was going to record myself answering the questions. This is the second time I've experienced this in my interview process, so it wasn't like something new to me. And what I have learned is that I have to be very attentive to what I'm saying because I really want to try and do it in one shot, but I usually have at least one chance to redo it.
Yeah.
Um, so I find the first time I did it, I was like super anxious about it. And then the second time, it was like, okay, I'm just on a Zoom chat or a webinar
Right.
or something. And both times I moved to the next round. So apparently I do reasonably well at them. But I also, the first one that I did, I actually did use AI to help structure my thoughts, but I didn't create a script. But
Mhm.
on the second one, I just kind of made a couple of notes on things that I wanted to actually make sure that I talked about. And I kept that notebook like right over here and just glanced at it. And I told them I have a notebook right here. So they knew that I was looking at that. And yeah, so it's just it really is like thinking about being the big Zoom head in a meeting, like when you're just pretend like Shira's there and talk to it.
Mhm. It's a really good point you're making, Helen. I don't think we've ever talked about this actually. Look, that's becoming a little bit more common, not everywhere. This whole idea of what you're calling the one way, or some people call it the whatever the video interview kind of a thing. I've noticed that it's not uncommon. When the record button goes on, we all get a little bit like something. It's true. No, it really is. It's actually a phenom. In fact, I'll share with you that once upon a time, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I was doing a search and it was an executive search, and I decided for the first time that I was going to provide the search committee with some recordings of my finalist candidates. I was going to try something new. So, meaning for them to see the person, not just read the resume kind of thing. And I prepared all the candidates for it. Everybody knew it was going to go on. And I prepped them and all the things. And as soon as I hit the record button, it was like they were a different person. I mean, that instant, they got stiff and robotic and nervous and like squirmy. And it was really a phenomenal like a phenom, right? A psychological thing. So I think, Helen, I'm really respecting what you're saying here. And I think this is a good tip for everybody. So notice how you said the second time you did it, it felt a little more comfortable. So
Hmm.
maybe a tip for everybody here is to start doing those things. First, practice. Get
Hmm.
on your own Zoom, hit record, pretend that there's some questions there and start to get into the habit of talking to crickets. Right? Really. And that might get you more sort of acclimated to it. So then you'll sound more natural, is really.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
funny you mentioned that, Shira, because yesterday a friend and I are working on a podcast that's not ready for prime time yet, and I was sick all week, so it was kind of a mess. But we were practicing, and when she hit the record button, she immediately tightened up.
Mhm. Yep. That's
And
interesting.
so we had a technical issue. We paused the recording, and I said, Heather, like, I feel like you're different. And we really want this to be about the conversations we have and not about the performance
Mhm.
thing. And when we resumed, she started doing hand gestures again. And she had been very much like this, and then she loosened up.
Oh,
And it's sometimes it's hard to get that feedback
mhm.
from
Mhm.
somebody. But when you do that and record yourself, watch to see how you engage with the screen and
Yeah.
whether you tighten up or
Yeah.
whether you're loose, relaxed, and calm. The other thing I do is I touch my face a lot. I'm
Uh,
like, I'm a
uh.
fidgeter. And and what's going on right here, I might and so I have to pay attention to where
Yeah.
my hands are and yet not glue them somewhere.
Right.
So
This is really I think a great little conversation here, right? Because it shows that we're human. This is normal, normal, like for everybody, right? And we have to like go really be intentional for it not to be that way. So maybe we can all kind of take a lesson from that and just start prepping, because I think we're going to get more of this sort
Yeah.
of one way, communication where we're talking to crickets. So
Yeah.
good.
So
Thanks, Helen.
I'm going to date myself now because when I was doing HR, this didn't exist.
Mhm.
But from the other side of the fence, if I'm in HR and I'm recruiting, doing something like this is really helpful in terms of determining who gets the interview, how they present themselves. So it really is worth the time and effort to, get as good as you possibly can and feel as comfortable as you can doing those those videos, because the likelihood they may pop up is a lot,
A lot higher these days.
more likely today.
Mhm.
The other thing that I just read, which kind of blew me away, and I think this was on LinkedIn yesterday or the day before, um, it said that the companies that are using AI and using it the way AI probably should be used are actually hiring more people than they did before AI.
Mm.
So it was, and again, it was they said this was like a preliminary, they're researching this, but this was the preliminary results of the research, more to come, which I found, kind of very interesting. So
Well, maybe it's doing a more effective job. I mean, it does do some things better than
yes,
humans, right?
yeah.
So,
But it's probably okay. So AI does this better. So how do you use this now
mm,
to do something better, within the workflow or create a new product or whatever you're trying to accomplish? So,
I,
mhm.
I would love to offer. We were talking about the the one ways, and sorry, right before I came on, I got hit with a major sneezing fit. So find out my voice for the first time. I had a candidate recently tell me that she went to a virtual interview thinking and expecting to talk to a person, and they hadn't told her that it was going to be a one way where she was recorded, and so she wasn't prepared at all. And I was going to say while you all were talking, I was thinking, the job search is a sport. I'm a former athlete, basketball player. We warm up before we play, and so I also have done some audio and video recording things, and everybody auditions and practices and check the lighting, and they do all of that before they go live. And so it's definitely good practice to practice every interview format panels of 5, 10, 6, 2, one-on-one, video, in person, standing, sitting. You should practice your spiel up and down. But I think to your point, but in a different way, Vern, it's funny because I don't think all the employers I've worked with, I can't speak for you, sure, but a lot of the employers we work with, they don't practice, but they have a mindset, even with AI. Like when a decision like that is made, and I've been a part of these decisions on the inside, we're going to start using video to record. And what are we going to look for? And they create this format. And so they may be hiring, but they may be hiring still a certain model, a certain unicorn that they're now trained on looking at, and maybe other candidates they might they might be giving a fair shot. Some candidates they may not, and so it's I think it's still evolving as we go through this.
Yeah.
The point of practicing everything and practicing every format ahead of time, that's good advice for every job seeker on this call. A lot of employers are moving, to using that because they're cutting their staff, they're trying to be more efficient, they're getting a million resumes, and they don't even want to do the first level screens or don't have time to do the first level screens. So it is becoming more a part of what we do. But I haven't heard enough yet to say that they're doing it well, because also this week I was watching CNBC and they were talking about companies who had tried AI. They jumped in the AI race for hiring and all of that, and they were realizing, wait a minute, we need to slow this thing down, because they just jumped in the arms race,
Right.
and they weren't prepared. So it's still iffy.
It's a little wild, wild west, right? It is. It
Yeah.
is. We all have to sort of go with the flow. I mean, even look, and it sounds silly to say this now, but even look at the beginning of COVID, how we all had to do this Zoom thing. Now it's like, old hat, right? We look at Hollywood squares, whatever. But remember at that time, whoa, wait, what? Lighting and this and that and all the things, virtual backgrounds, all like it that we couldn't stop talking about that because it was so new. Now we have a rhythm. We all get it, right? It's the same thing here, even more so, for us to really be intentional about the fact that technology is being used to screen us in a very different way. So it's just a moment of intention. Helen, thank you for bringing up that topic. It's really, really important.
No problem. I just it's interesting. I've heard the one thing I have not encountered is I have not encountered an actual AI interview, but I know some
Oh,
people
yeah, some people
have
do.
run into that as well. But I don't mind the one-way interviews. I don't know how I'd feel about an AI
Yeah,
interview.
I know. I think larger companies, I know, Helen, you're in the association world. I'm not sure that associations are going to necessarily go in that direction because we know our community, they're a little behind the times. But corporations, I think are more, the larger ones, right, are more likely to use that kind of technology. So, good. All right. Let's put that one in the can. So, who else has a question for us to dive into? Topic or a testimony? How are you all with leveraging your networks? We mention this on this call periodically, but even just yesterday, I was um, actually having lunch with my sisters, and one of them was telling me about her husband and how her husband was doged, but then he got back into the government through a former colleague. And what was interesting is, and it was just so, I actually called her out on this. I was like, it's so interesting, she said to me, well, her husband was missing this too. He was at HHS and he was in contracts. And then a woman that he used to work with, went over to what was the DOD and DOW now, and said, hey, we've got this contracts opening. Would you be interested? Well, yes, he was. And yes, he was mostly qualified, except for one thing that DOW uses now, but he is never used because he didn't have to use it at HHS. It's a certain way of contracting. But here's the thing: normally speaking, they would screen people out who didn't have this particular contracting skill. But the reason why they considered him and why they hired him is on his reputation with this woman that he used to work with. His reputation showed up before his resume. His relationship showed up before his resume. They were willing to overlook a skill he didn't have because of the relationship. He was a trusted person And because he was a trusted person, they said, you'll learn it. Normally, they wouldn't have done that. Normally, it would be like, oh no, you need to have all the things. So, it really just goes to show, and we've seen this. I know Alki, Vern, and I have seen this a lot, where relationships absolutely matter. The kind of, if you will, tasty breadcrumbs that you left behind you, Hansel and Gretel, right? In your relationships matter when it comes time to being considered for jobs, especially jobs where you're just a little bit of a pivot of what they want or what they need. But if you're trusted as a person, a lot of times that can be the thing that will get you in the door. So my question is, how well are you all, how much are you all leveraging your actual relationships, the people who know you, like you, and trust you, who you've worked with before, who really know your work, even if they're in a similar situation, and even they've been doged or whatever, right? But the people who actually know your work so that they can personally recommend you for opportunities. We see this all the time now. So many people are getting jobs from their former colleagues who have worked with them and are now someplace else, and they bring the person over. So I'm just throwing this out there more as kind of, it's an encouragement, right? But to see, has anybody been tapping, really tapping their trusted network for opportunities, people you've worked with in the past, and making sure that you're following up with them?
I want to
Yeah.
interrupt 1 second. Um, Not to be sound naive or anything. What is Doged?
What is that? Oh, so that refers to all the downsizings in the government that happened. I know, Scott, you're in New Jersey, so here in the DC area, we use this term a lot. The department, what was it? DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. That's what they
Yeah,
called it.
yeah, yeah.
And so all of those hundreds of thousands of people that were let go because of the downsizing, when Trump brought in Elon Musk and did all of that work with that new department. So here we colloquially refer to that as somebody was doged, meaning they
Okay,
were
I heard it
lost
the
their
other day
job.
on a probably Ask the Boss on, it might have been Ask the Boss, but it's one of the DC groups. I figured,
Yeah, if we
I knew
in
it was
DC,
or maybe it was Coffee with Bob. I knew it was government
yeah,
related by
we
then.
we use
Thank
that
you.
term a lot around here. We made, as Alki just wrote, we turned it into a verb because it happened to people so much. We just like, oh, they got
Yep.
doged.
Yeah. A follow-up to what Shira just said. You've heard the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you
Who you
know.
know.
And that phrase to me doesn't make a lot of sense because um, you know a lot of people, okay? It really is about how well do they
They
know
know
you?
you.
That's
That's
right.
right.
Because
That's right.
in Shira's example, that's exactly what happened. I mean,
It's
it
true.
wasn't that she just knew this guy or he knew her. It was she knew him well enough to speak on his behalf, to advocate for him, to, convince the hiring, group that, this is the person you really want here for this job, and here's the reasons and specifics, specifics in terms of a project that they did or an idea or how innovative they were. Those are the things that'll carry the weight. So.
And look, I know a lot of you have probably gone after those people, and maybe in the beginning of your job search, and maybe you're feeling like, well, I already touched base with them once.
No, no.
This needs to be a recurring relationship. If you had a good relationship, that's the key here. If
Yeah.
somebody really trusted your work, and I'm sure you all have lots of people, more than you realize, okay, that you've had those relationships with. Really make a list. And maybe you can use LinkedIn to remind you of who they are. Just go into your first level contacts and just go slowly through all of the people and make notes. Not just the people who, again, know you, but know you well, like Algie just wrote, and go, okay, when was the last time I talked to that person? What it doesn't matter. You could think that you're competitors. You're both going after the same thing. It doesn't matter. Even if you're competitors, you're not really competitors for the same job. You're competimates. Because if it's not right for them, it could be right for you. If it's not right for you, it could be right for them. Even if you compete for the same job, it doesn't matter. One of you's meant to get it. Okay. So don't worry about that. Even if you are all going after the same stuff, it's okay. If you had a good relationship, they really trusted you, it's worth staying in touch. They say out of sight, out of mind. That is true. Once you get off that call, they might think, forget about you. But if you are in regular touch, not every day, right? But periodically, they're more likely to remember you when the right opportunity comes up. They could be thinking of you, but you want to stay top of mind with those key relationships. Really, really helpful, truly, because you never know when someone's going to land. Like I didn't know, like he got this job. I'm like, wow, and how it happened. Things change with people. If we're not in regular touch, we just don't know what's going on. It's really worth staying in touch.
I, I think I'll add to that too that at least what I've witnessed since Doge especially, but I know that a lot of this process is tiring, it's exhausting, it's demoralizing a lot of times. The networking I'm talking about too. Um, a lot of the people that I talked to initially, beginning of this year and some last year, who found themselves out of work or whatever, the economy and the way things were going, a lot of people were beginning to pivot. We were all beginning to pivot and figure this out. And there was a lot of people come on this call and other places who are still looking. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, I did that. I reached out to people. Nobody gets back to me." Blah blah blah. Shira just mentioned key. The word key, and I think it's important too to keep in mind that either when you're talking to the people that who may not have jobs or know people who can hire, you're knowing yourself well as well and your background and what you're looking for and being able to brand that in a memorable way so that when you do circle back to these people, with these particular people, you leave something memorable. You're just leaving a little nugget like, hey, you probably won't run into anything. I don't know if you will or not, but remember, plumbing, whatever it is, so that when they're out doing whatever they do and they're like, that's right, somebody, who is it? Plumbing, this opportunity. Because otherwise, yeah, a lot of them, they're not vested. The other thing I found too is a lot of people are dealing with their own lives. I mean, we're being real. I think that's what's happening a lot too. There's a lot of people like, hey, buddy, I just lost my job, or my wife just lost hers. We're thinking about relocating or moving. Like I have friends right now, speaking of Doge, one of them was with the government for 20 years in charge of his department. And now they're contemplating whether or not they're going to move back after being here for 25 years, whether or not they're going back to Europe or not. And so a lot of people are trying to figure it out themselves. And so I think it's important too, if you can muster up the energy and the strength, that in your networking, you're always adding or putting some effort in on new people to get to know who might not be in those positions of dire straits, people who actually maybe can do something because you're already hitting and talking to the people that and some of them can't do anything. They're not thinking jobs every 5 minutes, but you may want to headhunt, recruiters, a new recruiter every other 2 weeks or whatever, add one to your bag because we're in the market of looking for people. And so we are actually looking. So instead of just those people that you might want to add some people too who are decision makers, managers, directors, VPs, people like that as well, or people who are in positions that see a lot of people. I'll mention somebody like a pastor or somebody like that. They talk to a lot of people. So if you're not already, remember to add those people.
And as a springboard off of that, Vern always talks about in networking, you want to always be teaching people about who you are and giving. Well, as a springboard off of what Alki just talked about, when you are doing your job search, you are hearing about opportunities that could be right for someone else. Think about that for a moment. Let that one hang in the air. How often are you proactively touching base with your network and saying, "Hey, Susie, this job could be right for you." That talk about goodwill. I mean, just for the sake of it, do the thing that you want other people to do for you.
I
Right?
may have just accidentally done that for the entire association community based on like a thing that I said on July 1st and then everybody jumped on.
Do it. Do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Let people know what's going. Hey, I heard about this opportunity. Hey, look, I'm on listservs. Okay. There's this one listserv I'm on the other day, and it just happened to say, "Oh, we're looking for a proofreader." Just like 2 days before, I had been networking with a woman I haven't seen in years. Who is that person? I'm like, "Hey, Kate, is this right for you?" I'm just doing, just because. right? Because I see something. Be proactively thinking of your network. Because like, here's the thing. Ready? Most people are looking for jobs these days. I don't mean just because they were doged. I mean a lot of dissatisfaction in the market. Vern and Alki and I hear this all the time. People who are gainfully employed who are unhappy with their job for whatever reason. Their company's getting disrupted, the culture is weird, supervisor, whatever, a lot of things. Okay. A lot of people are looking, either passively or actively looking. If you know that when you're networking with them, don't just make it about you. Be asked, so what's going on with you, Johnny? What's going on with you, Susie? And if they go, well, I'm kind of open to a job. Okay, what are you looking for? And you make a mental list or maybe an actual list. Maybe you do a little spreadsheet and you take some notes around what other people are looking for. Can you imagine the goodwill, right? If and you're just pinging some, oh, thanks for letting me know about that. Now you've just strengthened your relationship with them. Okay. Give and it will be given unto you. Pressed down, shaken together, running over. For those of you who know the scripture, like give, give. So that's a really good kind of full circle here around the networking thing. Be asking, talk to your network, and be giving to other people when you hear about things that are good for them. All right, other topics.
I think I'm to a certain extent experiencing burnout
Mm,
because it's been a year and a half since I had a full-time job.
mhm,
And I'm working a part-time job. I'm launching a consulting brand. I'm
mm,
kind of doing all the things you do when you start to feel like
mhm,
it's done. But that doesn't mean I don't still want a full-time job.
mhm.
But it's a lot harder now to muster up the energy to say that might be a job I can do versus that's a job I really want, you know.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So how does that relate to burnout?
Because I'm not applying to as many jobs,
Mm,
and it could be argued that I'm being more picky.
mm,
Um, but it's also, I keep seeing some of the same organizations posting jobs, and I'm like, they have a turnover problem. Or I see the same job being posted over and over again. They don't know what they want.
mm,
Like there's
mhm,
patterns.
mhm,
And I just feel like the window is narrowing for roles that I can apply for instead of expanding.
mhm,
I and the fake job issue is definitely one too. I don't see it as much in my industry, um, but it's just it's frustrating, and I just feel exhausted by is that a potential fit? Because I pour in and do a whole bunch of research. What's the 990? Who's the executive director? What's going on here?
right.
And I'm tired.
Yeah, it would, yes. And you know what, Helen, there's two sides to that coin, right? On the one side, you are doing the right thing. And I want to encourage everybody here, do the research. Don't have a halo effect over these jobs. You get the job, you got to like the job, you got to want to keep the job, and they got to want to keep you. So it is worth it to do the research. And it can be a little exhausting. But on the other hand, measure twice before you cut. Better to do that than jump into something because it looked all bright and shiny and you didn't do your homework, right? It's very, because look, they're doing it on you. They want to, they're taking their time. They're doing multiple interviews and checking references and blah, blah, blah. They're doing that on you. You should be doing that on them. How often do job seekers actually vet the opportunity the way that the employer vets the candidate? Very lopsided that way. Employers take all kinds of time, weeks, months, blah, blah. We want to find the unicorn. Do you do that? No, because you're like, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job. Well, guess what? You get that job. How many times have Vern Alke and I seen a person? They're like, I finally landed, but they took that job without really doing it. And then they call one of us, or like, oh my gosh, 3 months later, 6 months later,
Hmm.
right? Now, I'm
And
not
I've
saying
been
there's
in
any,
that boat before too.
yeah, I'm not saying there's any perfect situation, but the more you know up front, the better, right? So do your homework. But yes, we hear you, Helen. Be exhausting. But I think you're doing the right thing. I do. Really making sure that you're vetting it well. much better to do that.
We're,
Yeah.
we're also in a market too of it may not apply to everyone, but yeah, we're in a market where you're standing in line for good seats and or you're standing in line for the new thing and by the time you get up to the door, they're like, oh yeah, we're sold out. That's kind of a situation we're in as well, is like the ideal job. It exists somewhere. Um, could be in Madrid right now. Who knows? Could be in Los Angeles, or far away from wherever you are right now, because these are less than ideal times. And Shira just mentioned a second ago the hundreds of thousands. I don't know if you or Vern or anybody on this call has the last number, but the last number I think I heard last year, just from the FedGov alone, was over 800,000 people just from the federal government who were cut, not to mention all the other private
Ripple
sector.
effect.
And
Yeah.
so there are way more people looking right now than there are jobs. And so the job boards, which we talk a lot on this call, yeah, there's some real jobs there, but like, are they real opportunities? By the time, will you ever get a phone call? Will you ever get an interview? Will anybody ever look at your resume at all? And it could be the perfect job for you, but will you ever get a chance to talk to anyone? Will you ever get a chance to be ahead of the other 35 people who applied? So that's why pivot used to be the word. I think pivot now it's almost like COVID. We're kind of in a COVID type environment right now where things are not super ideal. So it's taking more of your time. It's taking more time looking, searching, networking, effort, punches in the face and in the gut over and over again. And so it's definitely not easy. We definitely empathize and sympathize.
And that's why the networking is so important.
Yeah.
It just is. It really is, because it cuts through all that impersonal job search. The LinkedIn, the job boards, all of those things are very, very impersonal, and much more so now with AI, having all the keywords and all the things. But when somebody knows you, trusts you, that's why it's just imperative to be able to do that. And not to mention, look, going forward, when you do get your next job, just be extra intentional about being that person, right? Who is gonna be known, liked, and trusted, right? Going forward, so that you continue to have those relationships when you need them and when they need you.
And the other thing, and we mentioned this a number of times, a really, really strong network, people that really know you well. You may also be able to tap into the hidden job market, which are the jobs that are not posted.
Not posted.
Not
That
posted
they know
anywhere.
about.
You will never find those jobs
No.
unless somebody knows you well enough, sees that opportunity and says, oh wow, this would be ideal for Helen. And they call you and like,
That's right.
you didn't even know this job existed.
That's right.
And then you get to interview and you land a job.
Mhm.
And I mean, that happened to me 3 times in my career.
Mhm.
And sometimes I wasn't even looking for a job. But they said, there's an opportunity I think would be really good for you. And I wasn't looking for a job. And lo and behold, I explored the opportunity, and it was a better opportunity than one I had. So, but that's when people really know you well.
Just this week, 2 people in the association space landed jobs at major association vendors.
Are you? I was going to mention Kiki's one of them, right?
Kiki
Yeah.
and Elizabeth Engel was the other one.
She did?
Yeah,
Sorry.
she's moving to Higher Logic. I know, right? If you're an
Sorry.
association person, this is
I know.
meaningful.
We're not going to have an offline cover. Wow, really?
But what's interesting to me about that is like I didn't see either of those jobs. They
Right.
both
Hidden relationships.
They were both about the relationships. They are both people who are well recognized as people who have given
That's
back
right.
to the association
That's
community.
right.
And I was already germinating an idea about giving back to the association community. But somebody did a roundup of all the news in the associations, and it's Elizabeth and Kiki and me. So I'm
Really?
like, hey, it's all the people from 2009 back at it. But yeah.
That's
So that was fun. I'm having a good week, so we can celebrate that at least.
Okay.
That's great.
Speaking,
Well, actually, to that point though, Helen, and we're not going to get into an offline about associations, right? Because we're in a mixed crowd. However, look, think about the communities that you all are a part of. Okay. People know people within communities, within sectors, within industries. Even if your sector has been radically disrupted, like I know Monica's who was wrapped up in the whole USAID world, okay, for sure. And yet, people have common interests, they have common relationships, they have common knowledge. And a lot of those people want to hear about what's going on with you, what's going on with others, who's landed where. Like there's just like a bond there oftentimes, right? So I want you to be thinking about that. Are you part of or have you been part of a community where you will be more known, liked, and trusted simply because you're part of that sector? So just be thinking about that.
if you haven't done this already, I was typing this twice and then I stopped because Vern came on and talked about the hidden job market. But before he said that, I was typing in the chat and I said I'll just save it and speak it live. So if you haven't before, two places, for example, that are resources that you could link up with, or two communities and network. Like one is literally the community. So I don't know if any of you have friends or contacts or connections or have ever worked with any of the Chamber of Commerce's. Your local Chamber of Commerce, nearby chambers of commerce in other cities, places you've looked or worked. Um, Chambers of commerce built with business owners and businesses who are connected to the community and the municipalities. They have representatives from those companies and organizations that, register with the Chamber of Commerce, provide services to and for the city and others from time to time. If I'll give an example, I reached out once because I had a search and I reached out to the Chamber of Commerce and just said, hey, I'm recruiting in your city, brand new. I have a contact there. Um, uh, do you know anyone in this particular area who might know someone or who might have a candidate, blah, blah, blah. They sent over, some leads that I built new connections and relationships with, out of which I actually got a search through that I had a candidate for something else, that I ended up getting a name of a local organization and got connected with the CEO, and my candidate got a job just by connecting with the Chamber of Commerce. I recently was working with Montgomery County, and I think in Silver Spring and Gaithersburg and other places, there's over 50 to 60 to 70 organizations and businesses that are in Chambers of Commerce who a lot of times are part of that hidden network. And the approach to them is, hey, I'm just following up. I do XYZ elevator pitch. Here's my brand. This is what I do. This is what I offer. And this could be a conversation a lot of times with the person who sits at the front desk, or one of those types of contacts who knows everybody, can say, hey, I'm just putting it out there. If you know anybody in the city, whoever needs XYZ, I'm on the market. That's a good way to connect with the community that's connected with a whole lot of different people who talk to each other. And there's several communities and networks and boards and organizations who do things like that, who might be a little bit more willing, like, hey, yeah, Joe and them need somebody. They need somebody who does exactly what you do. So that's one resource, if you haven't done it already, to maybe climb up and bark up that tree and see what happens. If you're tired of doing the same old, and looking at the job boards all the time, that's the kind of networking that could open up some new relationships.
Vern and we regularly bring up this woman. I always forget her name. What was her name?
Sandy.
Yeah, we won't tell the whole story, but the bottom line is that this was the woman who was looking for a job for a long time and just, happened to find herself, here in the DC area. She went to a jazz club. There's a whole story around it, but the bottom line is she got a job through the most unusual of circumstances, going to a jazz club and talking to the band leader. And like, he says, what do you do? And do you know QuickBooks? Yes, I do. I'm looking for office manager. I'm looking for an office manager. And she gets hired like the next day, like that kind of thing, whole story, but nothing to do with the normal. So even though, yes, we start out the conversation by saying, go after your network, it's true. Do go after the people who you have relationships with. And to Alki's point, it's a whole other world out there of people who are maybe in a different place, who might hear different kinds of opportunities. Make yourself open for that. Talk to people and go show up in person and build relationships.
The one thing about the Sandy story, again, it goes back to teaching and giving, and this was such a simple give. She had listened to the band. She really enjoyed the band. She was leaving, and she said to herself, you know, I really need to go back in and just say thanks to the band and tell them how good they were. And so that was a simple give. She was giving them a compliment. And then they started to ask her questions, and they got down to, well, you know, what do
You
you
do.
do? And, you know, and she says, I know, you know, I'm in accounting. And he says, do you know QuickBooks? And she said, yes. And here's my business card. And give me a call on Monday. And she got a job. But imagine if she didn't go back in
Right.
to thank them.
Mhm. Mhm. You know, I hope this today has been sort of this reaffirmation, right? It's relationships, just relationships. Give.
Mm.
Go back to your people, give to people, let people know. Because every time you let somebody know that you're looking, it's not about you and your paycheck. Although, yes, you should be earning a paycheck. It's not about you. When you are sharing with people about what you do, you are giving something to them because you're letting them know the kinds of problems you can help certain kinds of organizations solve, which means you're being a blessing. That's the point. That is the point. If people did not know what you do and how you could help, they would never get to benefit from your skill set. Why do employers hire people? For their benefit, to advance their mission. You could be that person. If you have that kind of mindset, I think that's one of the biggest things that reframes that I think all job seekers need. It's not about you. It's not. In this case, it's about them. Now, yes, it is about you in the sense that there are certain needs that you have, but from the perspective of networking, it's about them. It's about the organization. It's about the mission. It's about the sector. It's about the business goals, the organizational goals that they are trying to advance. That's why they're hiring. When you have a need and you have a leaky faucet, you're not calling the general handyman necessarily. You're calling the plumber. Why? Because you need a specialist to help you with a very specific problem. And yes, we want that plumber to be able to put food on his kid's table. Yes, but that's not why you call them. You call them because you need. And if that plumber had not networked with somebody in your neighborhood, you would never know that he or she exists, right? So the point is that you've got to think of it more in terms of how can I benefit somebody else? How can my skills be of benefit? And then let people know what you do, how you do it, for whom you do it, so they and their colleagues, right, can benefit from what you have.
Another possible source, and maybe you've already tapped into this, but you know, look at your resume and look at the job that you had prior to the job that you just, you know, maybe lost. Are there people in the, you know, from 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where you did really have a good relationship, but you haven't talked to them in
Right.
3 years or 5 years?
Totally.
They're dormant relationships. And those relationships can be rekindled fairly easily. And who knows if you reach out to one of those people and just, again, giving back, hey, it's been a long time. I wanted to, you know, I remember the project that you and I worked on 10 years ago. It just popped into my head, or I saw something on LinkedIn or reminded me of it. And you just reach out, and in 99.9% of the time, you're going to find someone willing and happy to, hey, yeah, let's reconnect. Um, and uh, and obviously, as part of the conversation, they'll say, "Well, how are you? What are you doing?" And you tell them, you know, you're in the job search. Um,
One Vern just in a different kind of a way triggered a thought to my head too, and I'm just trying to think of things that aren't the things that everybody is doing every day already, but your LinkedIn page, your LinkedIn page and your recommendations, and your whole LinkedIn page, for example. If you've been in the market looking for a while and you can't find anything, it might be a good time to look at your LinkedIn page too, just to say, you know, hey, number one, this is a free billboard that LinkedIn offers. It's basically a website. That's kind of how we're living now. It's a website. It's a career website for you. You get to control the content that goes on that website. And so if you're not finding things, not being noticed, your network contacts aren't getting back to you as much, that could be a good time too to look at your recommendations and go, you know what, let me take a look at my recommendations. This thing was done 11 years ago, and they said, oh yeah, you know, he did a good job when he was with us. Well, nowadays people have lower attention spans. It could be a good time to take a quote and move that up, or have your contacts that you've worked with or helped before say, you know what, Bob was really, really good at this. He really helped us out of crunch, and begin to, kind of push some of those things to the top of your LinkedIn page. You could add it in a headline, and it's not what we preach all the time, but trying different things and being creative, getting recommendations, or maybe even having people to rewrite, or ask their permission. Hey, can I rewrite? Can I requote you on your quote that you gave a while back, so that it can bump up to the top, and just, do testimonials to show people, because employers, recruiters, we look at that. Shira was talking about this earlier. You could be skilled at what you do, but if I don't know you, I'm going to know, like, yeah, I've got 10 people who are good. How do I know you're really good? Oh, you've got 5 people who are saying the great things about you and saying the same thing. It almost works like having a live recommendation and a referral.
Yeah.
And so that might be something you might want to look at on your LinkedIn page. Are there any ways that you could increase or improve your marketability with recommendations, referrals, feedbacks, good quotes?
And having quote recommendations and quotes that are on brand for you. Not just saying a good thing, but saying the right good thing. If somebody says, oh, so and so, you're detail oriented, but you want to be seen as a strategic thinker.
No.
Yeah. Keep thinking. By the way, I noticed we've been doing a little networking in the chat, which is great. So it reminded me that we do, for those of you who haven't done it, we have a Google Sheet for networking contact info. So if you haven't filled it out, I encourage you to do that. And by the way, I just launched, I relaunched a newsletter with little articles. So I started it up again on Saturday. So I'm going to I'm going to take the liberty of including the folks who are on that Google Sheet into it, because I'm assuming you'd want to get it. It's just every other week, every other Saturday morning, I'll be sending it out with a little article, a little story about some job search tip that might be helpful. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you guys. All right. So speaking of networking, let's go ahead. We do this every once in a while. We're going to go around the room and do our little, who you are, what you're looking for kind of thing. So I think most of you have done this before with us, but I'll just remind you how we're going to do it. So we're going to do lane and community. Your lane is what you do. Your community is who you do it for, right? So your lane could be accounting, customer service, marketing, whatever it is. Your community, if you have a community, some people don't, and that's okay. If you don't align to a sector, no big deal. But if you do, and you're in the association sector, government, environmental nonprofits, banking, whatever it is, please say that as well. But you just simply say that. My lane is this, my community is this, if you have one. And if there's a specific organization that you're looking at, and you maybe want someone if you want a referral, that would be great. Or if there's a particular part of the sector you're looking for introductions to, please say that as well. And we'll go ahead and wrap up with that. So I'll just go around the room. So Victor and then Holly.
Hey, my name is Victor Tao. I was a pen tester before. I'm still looking for a pen testing job. Community is cybersecurity in my community, but it could be any community.
Thank you. Holly, and then Monica.
Hi, everyone. I'm Holly Stockdale, and my lane is public health. And I guess I think of my community as Medicaid and aging policy, which is my background. So that's what I'm currently looking for related positions in.
Great. And by the way, as you all hear about these lanes and communities, just be thinking in your network, do you happen to know anybody that's in one of those that you could be making an introduction for? It can be really, really helpful, because you never know. Monica and then Helen.
Hi, I'm Monica Jeremy. My lane is marketing and communications, but I think it's a little more niche than that. My work helps vulnerable people in crisis and builds trust, drives action, and secures funding. I'm not from the building awareness type venue. My community has largely been the U.S. Agency for International Development. And so what I'm trying to do is find a way to serve combat veterans and their families, which would be a joy and not feel like a consolation prize after USAID's dismantling. There's a whole backstory to that, which I will skip.
Thank you, Monica. Helen and then Mark.
Hi, I'm Helen Mosier, Certified Association Executive. I think my lane is executive leadership. That's a change from maybe the last time I said something. And my community is definitely associations and membership-based nonprofits.
Mark and then Carol.
Good morning, all. I'm Mark Pretzat. I'm an attorney, and I work in the financial services and banking area, and I'm trying to find something permanent in that area. Thank you.
Carol and then RP.
Hi, my name is Carol Chang. I live in Houston, Texas. My lane is healthcare project management, operations, or coordination, and my community is in the Houston area.
But more specifically, sorry, community meaning the sector or the industry?
Oh, healthcare.
Oh, healthcare. Okay. RP and then Scott.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Roz Pruitt, and I'm a project manager. My lane is project management, and my community is telecom technology, but I'm also industry agnostic, and I'm from Philadelphia.
Great. Thank you, Raj. And Scott.
Thank you. I was going to mispronounce that word, so I'll maybe say it correctly. I'm Scott Boudreau, Certified Planning and Inventory Management from Central New Jersey. My lane is supply chain, and my community is industry, ag diagnostic, whatever. Industry doesn't matter. I prefer packaging, and, janitorial supplies, whatever. Wouldn't mind healthcare hospital, but I know that's a hard industry to break into.
Yeah.
Scott Boudreau.
Thank you, Scott. All right, everyone. So we got another few minutes here. Anyone else have another question or a topic that we can dive into? Or actually, let's do this. When you were listening to other people on this call, did you think of anybody in your network that could be a connection for somebody else?
Monica, I used to work for the National Active and Retired Federal Employees Association, and so I'm connected with a lot of the nonprofits that are in the veteran service space. So I will connect with you and send you some of the links that I have.
Thank you very much. Yes, I would very much appreciate that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just like that, where you have a connection, industry connection.
Yeah, I have like 2,200 LinkedIn connections at this point, so I'm willing to make warm introductions as appropriate. Most of the time, I leave a note for people so that I know how I know them. And so, like, if I know people through the job seeker forums, I think I have a high chance of them saying yes. I've been surprised that like people I worked with in the 1990s in USAID programs related to water and environment, who I haven't worked in with years, have been very willing to do, virtual coffees with people, but then other groups of people that I've worked with more recently have not. So, but you just don't know.
We haven't done this in a while, but wanted to make sure that folks are aware of some of the other job support groups that are local. And I'm going to put this in the chat. I'm putting little pipelines between them. So careerconfidence.org is one that's local. Now, of course, most of these things are virtual, so feel free, anybody around the country, but they are based here in the DC area. So careerconfidence.org, careernetworkministry.com, 40plusdc.org, and then the JCA Career Gateway. So the first three of those are just free community service webinars. They're different than this. Here we do open Q&A. There they have a presenter. Somebody like me, Werner Alke, will be presenting on a topic. And Career Confidence meets mostly on Saturday mornings. Career Network Ministry has their main event on Tuesday nights. but also has an accountability group and other kinds of things during the week. 40 Plus DC, I believe, meets Monday evenings. The JCA Career Gateway, that's a little different. They have a program. They're going to be starting up again in September. That's a 5-day program, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday. It's $99, but because they're grant funded to do this, but full days, 5 full days. You're literally taken through kind of a boot camp kind of situation where you're taught all job search things. I happen to lead the LinkedIn training on the second Monday, but they bring in all kinds of trainers. But they have a one main trainer, Dr. Elise Barnes. So anyway, highly recommend all of those groups, and looks like Monica put in something as well. And if you have another group that you are interested, that you think is good. Carol, is it maybe you're in Houston. There's one, I think, in Austin, the I always get this wrong. Launchpad. Yes. They're great. Carol, if you have their LinkedIn, I could go their information. I could find it, but I've spoken
Yes,
with
I'm aware of them.
They're really good. If you wouldn't mind finding their information and putting them in the chat. Also, they're virtual too. But anyway, if you guys have other networking resources for folks, please feel free to put them in the chat. All right, so we'll just wrap up a couple minutes early today. So as per usual, if you would like to stay on the call after the session wraps up, I do a short prayer call with folks for any prayer needs that you might have. So with that, wish everybody a happy 4th, a cool 4th, stay cool, and we'll look forward to seeing folks in a couple of weeks. And again, as always, feel free to refer your colleagues. Okay, God bless everyone. Take care.
Take care, everybody.